Welcome to Art to Know with MommyO, where mini adventures in fine art are always fun art. Today we're going to look at artwork that blooms as we discover a floral masterpiece created by an artist who lived by and painted his passion. I'm MommyO, your adventure guide. Join me in my studio as masterpieces of fine art come to life. Before looking at Oscar Claude Monet's beautiful artwork entitled Chrysamthemums, let's start by discovering a little bit about the artist himself. Oscar Claude Monet, also known as Claude Monet, is most well known as a member of a league of French artists known as Impressionists. As a matter of fact, as one of the very first Impressionist painters of his time, Monet has been dubbed the father of Impressionism. However, he did have another lesser-known claim to fame, and it had to do with his passion. I wonder if you can imagine what that was. Here are a couple of clues. His second claim to fame and passion have to do with why we say Monet's artwork blooms, and why Monet himself is quoted as saying, "I perhaps owe having become a painter to flowers." I bet you figured it out by now. His second claim to fame is his green thumb and his love for all things gardening. We'll learn more about Monet's blooming passion in just a bit. Let's get back to Monet being an Impressionist painter for a minute. Impressionism was one of the more short-lived art movements in history, lasting from 1865 to 1885, a mere 20 years. However, coupled with the invention of the camera, it soon became a very influential 20 years, after which the world would never look upon art in the same light, literally. Prior to the invention of the camera and the Impressionist movement of the late 19th century, artists strived to paint everyday scenes with the reality of what we would expect to see in a modern-day photograph. As a matter of fact, people thought of art as a sort of visual record of history before we began to think of photos as such. The invention and mass production of the camera changed all of that and allowed artists to paint in a different light. And paint in a different light they did. Impressionists were more concerned with painting the light and the color of a moment in time rather than depicting every little detail of the objects they were painting. As a result, they moved from inside stuffy studios to paint in the great outdoors where an abundance of natural light flooded their subjects. Because they were most concerned with capturing light and how it reflected off objects and affected color, they had to work very quickly as natural outdoor light changes by the minute. For this reason, the Impressionists used very rapid, thick, quite messy brushstrokes and started with a palette of pure, unmixed paint colors, mixing them directly onto the canvas to save time. Also in a time-saving effort, rather than painting every detail, they painted only a glimpse. In other words, an impression of what the person, object, or landscape looked like to them. Monet's passion for everything gardening and flowers inspired him to create a floral esplanade at his homestead in Giverny, France, where he spent 43 years from 1883 to 1926. There, with the help of his family and 6 gardeners, Monet composed each of his spectacular gardens as he would have composed any one of his magnificent paintings. As the story goes, after Monet first planted his garden masterpieces, he left to travel Europe and didn't return until the Giverny gardens had fully matured, at which time he began painting them. What makes Monet different from other Impressionists of his time is that because of his obvious passion for flowers, his artwork blooms. He often painted flowers and as a result painted many works based on the flowers within his sprawling gardens. The gardens just to the north of Paris, France, are now maintained just as Monet kept them. His love of gardening as well as color is evidence from the sheer complexity of the landscape and its palette. Today we look at chrysanthemums. However, it wasn't just chrysanthemums that Monet prolifically painted. He loved to paint all flowers. Geraniums, water lilies, gladiolas, daisies, Jerusalem artichokes, dahlias, tulips, poppies, azaleas, you name the flower, and Claude Monet probably painted it. With so many beautiful floral paintings to explore, you can rest assured MommyO will be visiting many more Monet masterpieces to come. Monet painted flowers both growing in a garden as well as those arranged in vases. The flowers seen in Chrysanthemums are clearly growing in a garden because Monet has given us a glimpse, an impression, of the green vegetation surrounding the delicate flowers. The delicacy of real-life chrysanthemums would have been exaggerated by the way in which Monet painted them. In capturing just a glimpse of the flowers, he was painting the light and the way it shined upon them in what would be called highlights, rather than the flowers themselves. It's easiest to see the highlights on the darkest flowers, the red. The pink areas are the highlights and where Monet painted the light upon the flower petals. Monet used so many other beautiful colors in this painting too. I see yellow, blue, green, orange, pink, and peach. I even noticed that, as artists often do, Monet used color to draw the viewer's eye into the artwork. In this case, he used bright white. If you look away from the artwork for just a second and then look back, I bet your eye goes directly to the white flowers in the center. No one quite painted flowers like Claude Monet, and that's why we can say Monet's artwork blooms. It's been super duper fun exploring chrysanthemums, discovering more about Monet's passion, and learning a little bit about Impressionism. Thanks for stopping by my studio for Art to Know with MommyO, where fine art is fun art. Come back again soon, but in the meantime, to create your own colorful chrysanthemum garden using brightly colored papers, check out my blog at homespunandhandson.com. There you'll find a fun hands-on activity that will help you create a mini garden in the spirit of Giverny.